Okay, how am I? How am I doing? How am I fucking doing? Here's how I'm doing. I spend as much time fantasizing about having sex with my ex-boyfriend as I do about seeing him at an open mic. We haven't run into each other yet, but seeing him at an open mic, and I take a beer bottle and I break it in half, and then I cut his face with it, and then I take the blood and I wipe it on my face, kind of like war paint, and then I go up on stage and I do my set with his blood on my face. Right, but it's like I can't do that for real, because what? That's gonna make everyone think I'm less racist, you know? Yeah, so that was the you can cut it or keep it, but that is how I really genuinely feel about my life right now, is that I'm struggling. I'm afraid to leave my house most of the time, just because there are people that I don't want to see, and like a part of my life that I'm just trying to escape. It feels like being back in Chicago is uncomfortable, and I constantly feel like I want to run out of every room that I walk into. So this episode is about my ex-boyfriend. No, not that ex. The other one. That guy I used to date, the mixture of Voldemort and Kevin Federline. I really have amazing taste in men. I am attracted to psychopaths with really big dicks. It's like you have to be super smart and well hung, and that's my guy. It helps if he's a sex addict and completely deranged. I just swoon. Can't keep me away from them. Let's talk about what's wrong with me for a second. So let's dive into that can of worms. I really want to talk about what my fucking issues are in dating and in relationships, because I spent a lot of money in therapy, and I have spent a lot of time reading self-help books, and I have talked to a lot of friends for, extended periods of time over the phone, over text, over fucking Instagram DMs about why the fuck I'm alone and miserable, and why I destroy every relationship that I'm in, because I suck at life. I suck at life. I actually took a lot of RSO last night and figured out what all of my problems are. So that's fun. More on that later. But what's wrong with me? What is wrong with me? I'm really bad at romantic relationships. First of all, because I never had a good model of what a healthy dynamic between two people look like. My grandparents didn't have a healthy relationship. My parents didn't have a healthy relationship. I don't know if I've known anyone except maybe my Aunt Cassie, literally anyone personally that I know, male, female, hetero-romantic relationship to be healthy, functioning, positive, and nourishing. I've never seen that in my life except on TV, and that's fake. So the only examples that I have for what healthy and good looks like are just, lies and stories. So I don't know what it looks like. I've never seen it. I've never been in it. In fact, I would go as far to say that I've only ever seen really unhealthy, kind of fucked up, toxic, bad relationships. That's been my primary exposure. And I was raised by two women in particular who never healed from their own trauma. My grandmother had a tough life that she never healed from, and so she was really angry, and she would just tear people apart and walk around like it was nothing. Emily Gilmore seems like a nice lady compared to what my grandmother was like all of the time. She would just cut you in half with her words, and she would turn around and act like it was nothing. So everyone in my family grew up being talked down to and being told what an insignificant piece of shit they were, and how they were always doing everything wrong all of the time. Now, my grandmother had a mental illness that went undiagnosed her whole life. She had OCD. It was never treated or dealt with, and the way that it manifested itself is that she was just really angry all the time. She was walking around with this mental illness that she wasn't aware of, and she was constantly on edge and feeling uncomfortable, and she took that out on everyone around her. So that's like my compassionate lens that I have to look at my family through to understand why I was told every day of my life that I sucked and that I like can't do anything. And I grow up and I feel like, oh, I suck and I can't do anything. And it's like, whoa, why do I feel that way? Right. Because you you are a product of your environment. So what's wrong with me is that I grew up in a shitty family with, unhealthy role models. So I never learned how to do that right. So every relationship that I got into was kind of like an exercise in disaster. I was just modeling what I had been taught, and that was a high stress, chaotic, sort of dramatic, like fucked up environment. If I'm like in like a normal, healthy relationship, I'll just break up with him for fun, because I don't know what I'm doing. To counteract that, which I think is really interesting about me and maybe about other people in this sort of dynamic, if any of this is sounding familiar to you at all, is that I'm really good at friendship. Like, I'm really good at getting people to be friends with me. I'm really good at like making new friends. I think that right off the bat, more often than not, I can get like a group of people to be like, yeah, we like her. She's cool, but I think that comes from having this like adaptive lifestyle where I was constantly the new kid. I constantly had to, take care to make sure that my environment was as comfortable as possible because everything around me was chaos. So I had to learn how to manipulate people at a young age into accepting me so that I could feel normal when nothing around me was normal. So we've got these two sides of me. I've got this like trauma from being talked down to my whole life, and then this adaptive response where I'm manipulative in a way that makes people nicer to me, So why am I bad at relationships? I mean, fuck, dude. I don't know. I'm think what I'm bad at is keeping relationships, because I can convince almost anyone to fall in love with me, and then they're obsessed with me and they think I'm so great, and then we hang out for a little bit longer, and then they sort of see like all of the anger and trauma and really fucked up darkness that I keep underneath this like lovely, bubbly exterior. It's so funny how many people will be like, oh, you seem so happy. You seem so effervescent. You seem light. You seem, like full of joy, when it's really, that's what's on the front. What's on the inside is that I want to fucking die. I'm miserable all the time. My parents are dead. I don't have any siblings. I am so fucking lonely. The only person that loved me died. Every man I've ever loved has cheated on me or like betrayed me or like literally stolen money from me, and I can't trust anyone. So this episode is about a sex club that I joined while I was on intensive drug probation and out of jail for the second time, and in this really fucking crazy, terrible relationship with this really sexy gay guy. Buckle up, because the last two episodes have been a little dry, because the next two are kind of intense. Like, I am a little embarrassed to sit here and tell you all of these like nitty gritty details, but I mean, after everything else I've told you, it's like this should be the least of my embarrassment on here. But really, this is embarrassing because this is all of this stuff that you don't know about me. This is who I am behind closed doors. This is who I was for a certain part of my life, and not a lot of people know that, and now a lot of people are going to know that. And then I see those people in real life, and it's like, it's like weird, you know? I'm not going to fuck anyone who listens to this podcast, but I'm also not going to fuck anyone who doesn't listen to this podcast, is what I'm trying to say. Okay. I often find myself drawn to extremes because when I was a kid, I went from living in this dope house on the beach to, you know, living in a car with my mom. I went from traveling all over the country, going from LA to Miami to Chicago to a year-round boarding school where I was literally never allowed to leave. I went from being under sort of like a weird constant surveillance of boarding school, of going to college and having absolutely no supervision and selling drugs and living, you know, above and underneath the law. And then I went from having, you know, more freedom than most people could ever imagine to going to jail to having every aspect of my life and autonomy ripped away from me. And then I went from jail to this like super party like lifestyle where I was just doing way too many drugs all day long, every day, because I had just had everything taken away from me. And then I went from party to now I went in rehab. Now I'm sober. Now I've got this grown-up job. Now I'm like trying to become a person again. I'm, you know, hiding in plain sight and I'm pretending that I'm normal, but I'm like clenching my fist so hard I'm drawing blood, you know? So now this guy and I have decided to move in together. He was in France for several months finishing up a study abroad program that he was doing in business school. And so when I was in Japan, he was in France, and we had visited each other and had made this decision a while ago where now we've known each other for like 5 years. Now we had been dating on and off for like several years. And we were like, all right, I'm going to live together. We're going to live together. Even though this is the guy that I found having a threesome with 2 other dudes in our apartment the last time we were going to live together. At this point, I'm like out of jail for the second time. And I'm like, yeah, we should live together. This is a really good idea. I had a 3-bedroom apartment in Lincoln Park above a bar that I do comedy in now. And why did we decide to do this? I don't know, man. It's just like, it was the worst idea, but we couldn't live without each other. I was convinced that he was my soulmate, and he was totally playing me the entire time because I had money and resources, and he, you know, needed a place to crash essentially out of business school. And like before he could get like his real job with his degrees, you know, he's going to have to spend several months interviewing and trying to secure a position. You know, you don't want to like go backwards and do an internship. You don't want to start entry level when you've gotten your master's. You're supposed to have like a real gig, but he was, you know, lazy, and he wanted to party, and I wanted to party. And he had this secret where he was secretly, you know, gay and pretending to be straight in front of all of his friends and family. And so he would go on Grindr at night and do a lot of cocaine and do a lot of ecstasy, and he would have all of this like wild, crazy sex. And I was just hiding everything about who I was, you know, the fact that I had sold drugs, the fact that I had gone to prison, and the fact that I, you know, really wasn't who I said I was to anyone at this point. So we were both hiding, and we both had these like really sick secrets that we felt like we couldn't share with anyone and that no one would understand us. So we're like, all right, cool, let's hide together, you know, let's keep each other's secrets, and then we'll, you know, destroy each other. That sounds like a really fun way to start living with someone for the first time. I am going to die alone. I figured out how to smoke weed, but I hadn't figured out how to heal. All I really figured out was how to, you know, bounce back from this like extreme austerity to like this extreme indulgence. So I'm like, yeah, I'm going to have the things I need. I'm going to have this guy that I'm in love with that I can have really good sex with. And we're going to like explore all of this weird stuff together. And then it's like, I'm going to do drugs and I'm going to fake my drug test and I'm going to work this job 60 hours a week and I'm going to pay all of our bills and I'm going to buy all of our food. Oh, and I'm going to buy all of our drugs and I'm going to support 2 people on one salary because I'm, lonely and fucked up and desperate. I feel like that's the best way you could describe my dating style is fucking desperate. Desperate for parents, desperate for love, desperate for companionship, desperate for anyone that I can just fucking be honest and real with. So I was just super desperate. And, he had everything that I needed. So we moved in together. And the worst part about living with someone that you've dated is that it ends in one of 2 ways. You're either going to get married or you're going to fucking break up. There's no in between. You move in together, that's your option. The other person moves out and it's fucking over, or you 2 are like, all right, I guess we'll just keep being roommates forever. That's it. That's all that marriage is. No offense to anyone who got married. We get it. You're better than us. But you're just roommates. But both of us were addicts, and we were enabling each other in different ways. He was a sex addict and definitely addicted to coke. And I am a weed addict and definitely addicted to like love and like bad relationships, which may not sound like a real addiction, but actually it is. And it's super dangerous and I've destroyed my whole life over it. So I'll keep going on with that. I had to be up usually between 5:30 and 6 a.m. so that I could get to work because I was the first one there every day and I had to like open up, and we would spend immediately upon him moving in most of our nights up until 3, 4, 5 in the morning. I would get no sleep. I would do so much cocaine so that I could just get through the day. And I mean, perfect for working at a law firm, right? But I was like dying. I was having such a hard time keeping up with all of it. And he would do all of this like crazy sex stuff. And I thought at the time I was into it, but I think what I was really into was just him and having him there and having that sort of like companionship and love and, bonding experience where it's like, I get to come home and I get to take off my mask and like be real with him. And he gets to, take off his mask and like talk about all of the guys that he's like fucked all day. So I'm at work all day long. He's like sleeping and going to the gym and going to fucking Steamworks. If you don't know what that is, Google it. He was going to Steamworks. He was going to Glory Holes. And then we found the Kitten Killers. The Kitten Killers is a nationwide sex club that is exclusive and sort of like a grown-up fraternity for kinky, fucking dissatisfied weirdos. I think that people that have to have like a lot of like crazy sex are really trying to cover something else up. They're usually addicts. It's not usually about this like deep understanding of pleasure. It's more like they're bored and they're looking for something else and they need to like fill this, infinite hole inside of them. And they're filling it with sex. And, you just get weirder and weirder and weirder until the next thing you know, you're applying for a sex club where people are like, crawling around on leashes and stuff. And that's fine. It's fine if that's what you're into. But I'd also say that not everyone there is like of sound mind and body. Probably like I wasn't. So the Kitten Killers is like this exclusive club. It has a pretty lengthy application process. You have to submit photographs. You have to go to a doctor and get an STD test. You have to pay some pretty hefty dues. And there are about 4 parties a year. So they throw them like quarterly. And they have them in New York, LA, and Chicago. So we went through the whole process. We went to the doctors. He got on PrEP because that was one of the requirements if you were having, homosexual sex outside of your application. And we only ever went to one party, and it was a pretty fucking brutal and not cool, fun experience, even though it's going to sound like it was a lot of fun. It really wasn't. We went to the yacht club downtown, and the yacht club is like a pretty exclusive country club in Chicago. So the fact that they even had an opportunity to throw the party there meant that someone who was in or organizing the Kitten Killers was like in the yacht club, because that's the only way you can have access to one of their ballrooms. But everyone was in lingerie. Everyone was pretty good looking, but they were also older. I'd say that we were on the younger side of the crowd. There were a lot of hookers. There were a lot of like older, not ugly, but like older men with like younger girls. And it just kind of reminded me of, when you first like see behind the curtain of the nitrous mafia and see how much they actually hate all of the hippies that they sell their gas to. It was kind of like that. It's like you think that it's this sexy, subversive experience, but then when you get there, it's just kind of like these girls all look dead in their eyes, these guys all look insatiable, and none of those people are happy. They might all be coming, but they're not experiencing like true like tantric pleasurable sex. They're sort of just experiencing like the ejaculatory release that you get from chronically masturbating with another human being as your tool. So that was fun. So did I make sex parties sound exciting and inviting? Because it's not something I do anymore. But I did go to one sex party, and I think still currently a member of the Kitten Killers, even though I probably won't take up any of their invitations anymore. But this was like me thinking at this time in my life of like, oh, you make, over $70K a year. Like you have a live-in boyfriend. You live in Lincoln Park. Like you're at a fucking sex club party in this beautiful ballroom, and all these people are naked and want to fuck you. Like it does, I guess. It just sounds good. Does that sound good to you? If that sounds good to you, then maybe you need to take some drugs. And if you want some free drugs, you should write a review for my podcast on iTunes. I'm just kidding. FBI, just kidding. Where am I? I think that it all sounds good, but in reality, in like the truth of it is that it was lonely. It was isolating. It was like you've reached the edge of the rainbow and there's nothing there for you. That like there's no one to fucking exchange your gold for goods and services to. You're just alone and empty. I remember going into a bathroom and watching this like little wafy blonde like Playboy looking girl like do cocaine, and I just kind of stared at her and I thought about what her life was, and I was like, she's as sad as I am. It was like it wasn't good. It wasn't like soulful. And I guess that's kind of when I realized that like this isn't the right like vibe for me. This isn't what I like. This isn't what feels good. And you go through these experiences in your life where you try different things, and then as you're trying them, you're like, does this resonate with me? And you either follow the shit that feels good or you don't. And if you don't, it ends up pretty bad. And so if you want to hear the bad ending of this, then check out the next episode, because this is the good part. The bad part is really bad, and it's coming up next. I love you guys. Write a review. Follow me on iTunes. Follow me on Instagram. I'm fine. Everything's fine. The holidays are hard. I love you. Bye.